The moment I felt his hand against my back, time slowed. The pristine white of my wedding dress billowed around me as I tumbled down the grand marble staircase of the St. Regis Hotel in New York. I remember thinking how absurd it was, that on what should have been the happiest day of my life, I was instead counting each painful impact as my body bounced from step to step. 1, 2, 3, 4. My pearl earrings, my mother's, borrowed for the occasion, scattered across the marble. The delicate lace of my custom Vera Wang dress tore at the shoulder. 5, 6, 7. The faces of our 300 guests blurred into a kaleidoscope of horror as they watched the bride, me, Jessica Harrington, daughter of Malcolm Harrington, CEO of Harrington International, fall in spectacular fashion. 8, 9, 10. I came to a stop at the bottom, the air knocked from my lungs, a sharp pain radiating from my left wrist. Through the stunned silence that followed, I heard his footsteps, measured, unhurried, as he descended toward me. Jessica, James Crawford, tech billionaire and my husband of exactly 47 minutes, rushed to my side with convincing concern etched across his handsome face. "Someone call an ambulance." As he knelt beside me, his steel blue eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew. I'd felt the deliberate pressure of his palm between my shoulder blades. The slight push had been imperceptible to everyone else, but to me, it had been unmistakable. "Don't touch me," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the commotion that had erupted around us. Confusion flickered across his face. Practiced, perfected confusion. "You're in shock, sweetheart. Let me help you." "Jessica." My father's commanding voice cut through the chaos as he pushed through the crowd, his normally impassive face contorted with worry. At 62, Malcolm Harrington still moved with the energy of a man 20 years younger, his silver hair the only betrayal of his age. "What happened?" Before I could answer, James squeezed my hand. A warning. "She slipped," he said, his voice heavy with fabricated concern. "These stairs are treacherous." The paramedics arrived with impressive speed, no doubt influenced by the combined net worth of the wedding guests. As they stabilized my wrist and checked for other injuries, I stared at the intricate floral arrangements that lined the staircase, white roses and orchids, each bloom costing more than what some people earned in a day. How fitting that something so beautiful could witness something so ugly. "Just a sprained wrist and some bruising," the paramedic announced. "You're very lucky, Mrs. Crawford." Mrs. Crawford. The name I had been so eager to take just an hour ago now felt like a brand. "We should still take you to the hospital for x-rays," he continued. "I'll come with you," James said, his hand possessively on my shoulder. "No." My response was immediate and firm. "My father will accompany me." I looked up at Dad, whose eyes narrowed slightly at my tone. Malcolm Harrington had built a fortune by reading people, and I knew he was reading me now. "The guests," I added for James's benefit. "Someone needs to handle them." James hesitated, but with 300 of New York's elite waiting for an explanation, he had little choice. "Of course," he conceded, pressing a kiss to my forehead that made my skin crawl. "I'll take care of everything here and meet you at the hospital." As the paramedics helped me onto the stretcher, I caught my father's eye. In that brief exchange, something passed between us, a question from him, an answer from me. My father nodded almost imperceptibly. In the ambulance, with the privacy of only the paramedic monitoring my vitals, Dad finally spoke. "Tell me." He pushed me. The words hung in the antiseptic air of the ambulance. My father didn't ask if I was sure. He didn't question my sanity or suggest I might be confused. Malcolm Harrington simply nodded, his jaw tightening as he took out his phone. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Making a call." "To whom?" "Stanley Bishop." His longtime attorney, and the man who had crafted the contracts that had dismantled more than one corporate rival. "Dad, wait." He held up his hand, silencing me as effectively as he did in boardroom negotiations. "No one hurts my daughter. No one." His voice was cold, clinical, the voice that had earned him the nickname, the executioner, in business circles. "Bishop? It's Malcolm. I need you to initiate protocol Scorched Earth." A pause. "Yes, on James Crawford. Everything." The hospital confirmed what the paramedic had assessed. A sprained wrist, contusions along my right side, and a small cut above my eyebrow that would heal without scarring. As the doctor wrapped my wrist, my phone began buzzing incessantly. Text messages from bridesmaids, calls from my mother, and finally, a message from James. On my way. Is everything okay? I love you. I stared at those 3 words, wondering how I had ever believed them. Jessica. My father's voice pulled me back to the present. Your marriage is less than 2 hours old. We can have it annulled with minimal fuss. I looked up at him, this titan of industry who had shaped my understanding of power and its application. No. His eyebrows rose in surprise. No, not yet. I straightened in the hospital bed, ignoring the pain that radiated through my body. I want to know why. Why would he marry me only to try to hurt me hours later? Why orchestrate all of this? I gestured to the diamond on my finger, which suddenly felt like a shackle. There's something more here, Dad. My father studied me with newfound respect. You want to play this out? I want to understand what game he's playing before we end it. I met his gaze steadily, and then I want to make him pay. A slow smile spread across my father's face, pride evident in his eyes. You're a Harrington, all right? Yes, I am. I smoothed the hospital blanket over my lap. And right now, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Don't let him know that we know. Let him think his act worked. Dad nodded, understanding immediately. And while he's playing his game, we'll be playing ours, I finished. When James arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, he found me sitting up in bed, my expression carefully composed into one of weariness and confusion. My father stood by the window, his face a mask of paternal concern, rather than the rage I knew was simmering beneath. Jessica! James rushed to my side, the picture of a devoted husband. How are you feeling? I've been so worried. I allowed him to take my uninjured hand, forcing myself not to recoil at his touch. I'm okay, just a little shaken. What happened? You were fine one moment and the next. He trailed off, his performance impeccable. I don't know, I lied, my voice deliberately fragile. I just remember falling. It all happened so fast. James looked relieved, believing I hadn't felt his push. These things happen. The important thing is that you're all right. He turned to my father. Malcolm, thank you for being here with her. My father, the consummate businessman, extended his hand. Of course. She's my daughter. As they shook hands, I watched the interplay of power between them. James, the tech wunderkind who had built Crawford Technologies from nothing into a $60 billion empire, and my father, old money and older influence, whose reach extended far beyond his publicly acknowledged assets. The doctor says I can leave, I said, breaking the tension. The reception? Already handled, James assured me. I've spoken with the guests. Everyone understands, and we've arranged for the celebration to continue without us. Your mother is overseeing everything. Of course she was. Caroline Harrington, socialite extraordinaire, wouldn't let a little thing like her daughter's accident derail the social event of the season. We'll reschedule the honeymoon, James continued. You need to rest. That's very considerate, my father said, his tone betraying nothing of his true thoughts. I've taken the liberty of arranging for Dr. Levine to check on Jessica tomorrow at your penthouse. That's not necessary, James began. I insist, Dad cut in, his smile not reaching his eyes. Only the best for my daughter. As James helped me into the waiting town car, I caught my father's eye one last time. The message was clear. The game had begun. The ride to James's penthouse in Tribeca was quiet, his hand resting possessively on my knee as he fielded calls about the wedding reception continuing without us. I stared out the window at the New York skyline, the city lights blurring through unshed tears that I refused to let fall. I'm sorry about today, James said finally, ending his call and turning to me. It wasn't how I imagined our wedding day would go. No, I thought bitterly. I imagine you hoped the fall would be more damaging. These things happen. I echoed his earlier sentiment, keeping my voice neutral. He studied my face, perhaps looking for signs that I suspected him. Finding none, he relaxed slightly. I've been thinking. Maybe this is a sign. A sign? That we should slow down. The merger announcement. The expansion plans. Maybe we push everything back a few weeks until you're feeling better. The merger. Crawford Technologies was poised to acquire a significant stake in Harrington International's digital division, a deal that had raised eyebrows in the financial world but had been championed by both James and my father. Was that what this was about? Whatever you think is best, I murmured, playing the dutiful wife while my mind raced. As the car pulled up to his building, James helped me out with exaggerated care. The doorman nodded respectfully, and the concierge hurried to assist us. In the private elevator to the penthouse, James pulled me gently against him. Mrs. Crawford, he whispered, his lips brushing my ear. Despite everything, I'm glad it's official. I forced myself to smile, to lean into his embrace, to play the part of the woman who didn't know her husband had tried to harm her. So am I. But as the elevator ascended to the 58th floor, my resolve hardened. Whatever James's game was, I would uncover it. And with my father dismantling James's empire piece by piece behind the scenes, I would make sure he regretted the moment he laid a hand on me. 3 weeks into our marriage, I had settled into a dangerous rhythm with James. By day, I was the devoted wife, accompanying him to business lunches and charity events with my wrist still wrapped, a constant reminder of our wedding day. By night, I scoured his penthouse for clues while he slept, searching for anything that might explain why my husband had wanted to hurt me. The penthouse itself was a study in modern luxury, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, with views that stretched across Manhattan. It was beautiful but sterile, lacking the warmth of a true home, much like our marriage, I supposed. "Jessica?" James called from his home office. "Can you come in here for a moment?" I set down the book I'd been pretending to read and made my way across the marble floors. James's office was the heart of his empire, a room filled with cutting-edge technology and the subtle scent of his cologne. He sat behind a desk of polished concrete, his attention focused on multiple screens displaying stock prices and news feeds. "Yes?" I kept my voice light, curious. He looked up, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I've been thinking about our discussion regarding the merger." "Oh?" I moved closer, perching on the edge of his desk. The merger between Crawford Technologies and Harrington International's digital division had been delayed following my accident, but James had been pushing to move forward in recent days. "Your father seems reluctant suddenly." James leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Has he mentioned anything to you?" Of course he had. Dad had been systematically acquiring controlling interests in several of Crawford Technologies' key suppliers through shell companies, preparing to squeeze James from all sides. But I merely shook my head, the picture of wifely ignorance. Nothing specific. "You know Dad. Always cautious." James nodded slowly. "Perhaps you could speak with him. This merger is important for both companies." "I'll try," I promised, knowing full well that my father was already 10 steps ahead in a game James didn't even realize he was playing. "Though you know how he is about mixing family and business." "Yes, Malcolm is quite principled." The word carried a hint of derision. James stood, moving around the desk to stand behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. "That's why I need you, Jessica. You're my bridge to Harrington International." Was that it? Had he married me simply to secure the merger? The thought was almost laughable in its simplicity. If that was his aim, why try to harm me at our wedding? "I'll do what I can," I assured him, suppressing a shiver as his fingers traced my collarbone. "I know you will." He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "That's what I love about you. Your loyalty." Later that evening, as James showered, I slipped into his office. His computer was locked, but the desk drawer where he kept his personal tablet was not. I had discovered the device a week earlier, but hadn't had the opportunity to examine it properly. Now, with the sound of running water providing cover, I quickly powered it on. The screen came to life, requiring a passcode. I tried his birth date. Nothing. The date Crawford Technologies went public. Still nothing. On a hunch, I entered our wedding date, and the tablet unlocked. My heart raced as I swiped through his files, finding mostly business documents and emails I'd already seen on his main computer. But then I noticed an app I didn't recognize. Opening it revealed a series of encrypted messages between James and someone identified only as AS. "Everything in place for tomorrow?" "JC. Yes. Harrington won't know what hit him." "AS? And the girl?" "JC. A necessary casualty. Collateral damage." "AS. The messages were dated the day before our wedding." My hands trembled as I scrolled through more exchanges, each more damning than the last. It wasn't just about the merger or Harrington International. There was something deeper, something personal between James and my father. The shower stopped. I quickly closed the app, shut down the tablet, and returned it to the drawer. By the time James emerged from the bathroom, I was back on the sofa, my book open to the same page I'd been pretending to read earlier. "I'm going to make some calls," James announced, heading toward his office. "Don't wait up." "I won't," I assured him with a smile that felt like it might crack my face. As soon as his office door closed, I texted my father. "Need to meet. Tomorrow. Important." His response came immediately. "My office. 10 a.m. Come alone." The next morning, I told James I was meeting my mother for brunch, a believable excuse that he didn't question. The Harrington International headquarters occupied the top 15 floors of a sleek skyscraper in Midtown, its glass exterior reflecting the clouds above. I had grown up visiting this building, watching my father build his empire from the corner office on the 50th floor. Security waved me through with respectful nods. In the private elevator, I used my fingerprint to access the executive floor. My father's assistant, Helen, who had been with him for over 20 years and knew more company secrets than most board members, greeted me with a warm smile. "He's waiting for you," she said, her eyes taking in my appearance with motherly concern. "Are you all right, Jessica?" "I'm fine, Helen." The lie came easily after weeks of practice. My father's office was exactly as I remembered, expansive yet understated, with views of Central Park and a desk that had belonged to my grandfather. Malcolm Harrington stood as I entered, his face revealing more emotion than he typically allowed in this building. "Jessica." He embraced me briefly, before gesturing to the sitting area, where a coffee service awaited. "Tell me everything." I did. I recounted the messages I'd found, the conversations with James about the merger, his increasing interest in Harrington International's operations. As I spoke, my father's expression darkened. "I knew he was a snake," Dad said when I finished, "but I didn't realize how deep this went." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city he had helped shape. "There's something you should know, Jessica. Something I've kept from you." The gravity in his voice made me sit straighter. "What is it?" 20 years ago, Crawford wasn't always his name. He was born James Caldwell. The name meant nothing to me, but clearly it held significance for my father. "Caldwell," he continued, "as in Roger Caldwell's son." Now that was a name I recognized. Roger Caldwell had been my father's partner in the early days of Harrington International, before a scandal involving embezzlement and fraud had destroyed him. Caldwell had been convicted, his assets seized, his family disgraced. He had committed suicide in prison while awaiting sentencing. James is Roger Caldwell's son? The revelation left me breathless. Dad nodded grimly. He changed his name, built his company, cultivated his image, all while planning his revenge. And I was part of that revenge, I whispered, the full weight of the deception crashing down on me. Marry the daughter, gain access to the company, and then destroy me, my father finished, just as he believes I destroyed his father. Did you? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Dad's eyes met mine, unflinching. Roger Caldwell destroyed himself. He was skimming money, making deals with people he shouldn't have been involved with. When I discovered it, I gave him a chance to come clean. He refused. So you turned him in. I protected the company, he corrected. And in doing so, yes, I contributed to Roger's downfall. But I didn't put that gun in his hand, Jessica. He made that choice himself. I absorbed this information, seeing the connections form. James blames you for his father's death, apparently so. And my fall down the stairs? A warning, perhaps, or the beginning of his true revenge, taking from me what I value most. Dad's voice caught slightly, a rare display of emotion. You. The coffee in my cup had grown cold. I set it down, my mind racing. What do we do now? My father's smile was cold, calculated, the expression that had earned him his reputation in the business world. We've already begun. In the 3 weeks since your wedding, I've acquired controlling interests in 7 of Crawford Technologies' key suppliers. I've initiated regulatory investigations into 3 of their largest contracts. And I've had Bishop preparing documentation of every questionable business practice Crawford has engaged in over the past decade. You've been busy, I remarked, impressed despite the circumstances. No one hurts my daughter. His tone left no room for argument. By the end of the month, Crawford Technologies will be bleeding from 1,000 cuts, and James won't understand why until it's too late. I want to help, I said, leaning forward. I have access to his home, his personal devices. There must be more evidence of his plans. Dad considered this for a moment. It's dangerous, Jessica. If he suspects you know, he won't, I assured him. I've been playing the devoted wife for weeks. He trusts me. After a long pause, my father nodded. Bishop will provide you with secure communication channels. Anything you find, send directly to him. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Be careful, Jessica. James Crawford, or Caldwell, is more dangerous than I realized. As I left Harrington International that afternoon, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The man I had married was not just a fraud, but an enemy who had been plotting against my family for years. The love I thought we shared had been a carefully constructed illusion, and now I would use that illusion against him. That evening, James announced we would be attending a charity gala the following night, a high-profile event where many of New York's business elite would be present. "Perfect opportunity to speak with your father about the merger," he suggested, as we prepared for bed. "Of course," I agreed, my smile not reaching my eyes. "I'm sure he'll be receptive." James pulled me close, his lips finding mine in a kiss that once would have thrilled me, but now left me cold. "You're my secret weapon, Jessica Crawford. With you by my side, there's nothing I can't accomplish." If only he knew the truth, that the weapon he thought he possessed was aimed directly at him. The next day, while James was at the office, I conducted a more thorough search of the penthouse. In a hidden safe behind an abstract painting in his office, I found documents detailing offshore accounts, shell companies, and a comprehensive plan to absorb not just Harrington International's digital division, but the entire company through a hostile takeover. The plan was ingenious, leveraging insider information and manipulating stock prices through carefully timed announcements and strategic partnerships. James had been planning this for years, positioning himself as the perfect suitor not just for me, but for my father's company. I photographed everything with the secure phone Bishop had provided that morning, transmitting the evidence directly to him. Then I carefully returned the documents to the safe, ensuring nothing appeared disturbed. That evening, as we prepared for the gala, I watched James adjust his bow tie in the mirror. Handsome, confident, utterly ruthless. How had I not seen it before? "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes appreciative as they swept over my midnight blue gown. "That color suits you." "Thank you." I applied a final touch of lipstick, a shade that matched my father's favorite tie, Harrington crimson. "Ready to make an impression?" James offered his arm with a smile that I now recognized as predatory. "Always." The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Temple of Dender serving as a dramatic backdrop for New York's elite. As we entered, heads turned. The tech billionaire and his new bride, their whirlwind romance and dramatic wedding still the subject of gossip. "James! Jessica!" Charlotte Winthrop, a longtime friend of my mother's, approached with air kisses. "How lovely to see you both. Jessica, darling, how's the wrist?" "Completely healed," I assured her, flexing my hand for emphasis. "Just in time for tonight." "Wonderful." "And James, I've been reading about Crawford Technologies' new security protocol. Absolutely fascinating." As James engaged in conversation, I scanned the room, locating my father deep in discussion with the mayor. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave an imperceptible nod before returning to his conversation. Throughout the evening, James and I moved through the crowd separately, reuniting occasionally to maintain the appearance of newlywed bliss. I was speaking with the wife of a prominent judge when I felt a hand at my elbow. "Mrs. Crawford, might I steal you for a moment?" The voice belonged to Stanley Bishop, my father's attorney and now my confidant in this dangerous game. "Of course, Mr. Bishop." I excused myself and allowed him to lead me to a quieter corner of the exhibit. "Your information has been most helpful," he said, his voice low. "We've identified 3 potential violations of SEC regulations and evidence of market manipulation. Enough to build a case?" "Getting there." Bishop's expression remained professionally neutral. "Your father asked me to tell you that the first phase has been initiated. Crawford's suppliers in Asia have suddenly encountered quality control issues that will delay shipments by at least 3 weeks. I nodded, understanding the significance. Crawford Technologies had major contracts with deadlines tied to those shipments. And the regulatory investigations? The SEC has received an anonymous tip regarding questionable accounting practices. They'll begin their inquiry next week. From across the room, I could see James watching us, his expression curious. "He's looking," I murmured to Bishop. Without missing a beat, Bishop pulled out a business card. "As I was saying, Mrs. Crawford, I would be happy to represent your charitable foundation whenever you decide to establish one. Many of our clients find it beneficial for tax purposes." I accepted the card with a gracious smile. "How thoughtful. I'll certainly keep that in mind." As Bishop departed, James approached, his arm sliding possessively around my waist. "Making new connections?" "Malcolm's attorney," I explained casually. "Apparently, being a Crawford means I should start my own foundation." James chuckled, seemingly satisfied with the explanation. "Not a bad idea, actually. We should discuss it." His gaze shifted across the room. Your father seems to be avoiding me tonight. He's probably just busy with the mayor. Politics, you know. I sipped my champagne, watching my father over the rim of my glass. I could introduce you to the commissioner instead. I hear the city is looking to upgrade their cybersecurity protocols. James's eyes lit up with opportunity, exactly as I'd hoped. Lead the way, Mrs. Crawford. For the remainder of the evening, I kept James occupied with introductions to potential clients and influential figures, all while ensuring he and my father maintained a respectful distance. The game required finesse. I needed to appear supportive of both men while preventing any meaningful conversation between them that might reveal our hand. As we departed the gala shortly after midnight, James received a call that caused his expression to darken. Problems? I asked innocently, as our driver navigated through the late-night traffic. Supply chain issues in Taiwan, he muttered, typing furiously on his phone. Nothing I can't handle. I turned to look out the window, hiding my smile. The dismantling had begun. Over the next 2 weeks, James grew increasingly agitated as problems mounted for Crawford Technologies. Suppliers missed deadlines, regulatory inquiries consumed his legal team's attention, and key investors began asking uncomfortable questions about the company's practices. Through it all, I played my part. The supportive wife, concerned but never questioning, always ready with a reassuring word or a timely distraction. Meanwhile, I continued to gather evidence, forwarding everything to Bishop while watching my father's systematic dismantling of James's empire. I don't understand what's happening, James confessed one night, the strain evident in his voice as he poured himself a third scotch. It's like everything's falling apart simultaneously. I moved behind him, massaging his tense shoulders with practiced sympathy. It's just a rough patch. All companies go through them. Not like this. He downed the scotch in one swallow. It's too coordinated, too precise. Someone's targeting us. Who would do that? I asked, my voice the perfect blend of concern and naivete. James turned to face me, his eyes narrowing slightly. That's what I intend to find out. The next morning, I awoke to find James already gone, a note on his pillow explaining he had an early meeting and would be late coming home. I used the opportunity to access his home office again, searching for any indication that he suspected my involvement or my father's. What I found instead was far more disturbing. In a locked drawer, hidden beneath false bottom, lay a gun and a USB drive. I photographed both without touching them, then carefully extracted the drive using a handkerchief to avoid leaving fingerprints. In the guest bathroom, far from any surveillance cameras James might have installed, I connected the drive to the secure laptop Bishop had provided. The contents made my blood run cold. Detailed plans for the complete destruction of Harrington International, culminating in my father's financial ruin and public disgrace. But it was the final file that truly horrified me. A dossier on my father's private security team, their routines, and a comprehensive plan for what appeared to be an assassination. James wasn't just seeking revenge through business means. He intended to finish what he believed my father had started, a cycle of destruction that would end with Malcolm Harrington's death. With shaking hands, I copied the files to my secure device and returned the USB to its hiding place, my mind racing. This was no longer just corporate warfare. It was a genuine threat to my father's life. I needed to act quickly. As I was replacing the drawer, my phone rang. James. Hello? I answered, forcing calm into my voice. Jessica. His tone was different, colder, more calculating than I had ever heard before. Where are you right now? At home, I replied carefully. In the kitchen, making coffee. A pause. Interesting, because according to our building's security system, someone accessed my office 8 minutes ago. My heart stopped. That's strange. I've been in the kitchen for at least half an hour. Have you? The disbelief in his voice was palpable. Jessica, I think it's time we had a conversation about loyalty. I'm coming home now. Don't go anywhere. The line went dead. I had minutes, perhaps, before James returned, before the carefully constructed facade crumbled, and I found myself face to face with the man who had married me for revenge, pushed me down a staircase, and now planned to kill my father. I grabbed my purse and the secure phone, heading for the door. As the elevator descended to the lobby, I called my father. Dad, I said when he answered, my voice steady despite my racing heart. It's time to end this. Now. I didn't go to my father's office or our family home. Those would be the first places James would look. Instead, I directed the taxi to a boutique hotel in Soho, where my family kept a suite under a different name for visiting executives. It was a secure location known to few, with private elevator access and discreet security. As I checked in under the alias Sarah Matthews, my secure phone buzzed with a message from my father. Stay where you are. Bishop and security team en route. ETA 30 minutes. I had barely settled into the suite when my regular phone rang. James, for the third time since I'd left the penthouse. I silenced it, watching as text messages flooded the screen. Where are you? Jessica, come home now. This is childish and dangerous. The final message sent a chill down my spine. You have no idea what you're involved in. Your father isn't who you think he is. I tossed the phone onto the bed, unwilling to be manipulated further. Whatever James had to say, whatever accusations he planned to level against my father, I wouldn't hear them without Bishop present. The evidence I'd gathered painted a clear picture of a man consumed by vengeance, willing to destroy lives to satisfy a decades-old grudge. A knock at the door made me freeze. It was too soon for Bishop to have arrived. Mrs. Matthews? A woman's voice called. Room service. I hadn't ordered anything. Moving silently to the door, I peered through the peephole to see a hotel employee with a silver tray. There must be a mistake, I called through the door. I didn't order anything. Complimentary, ma'am, the woman replied, for all our executive suite guests. Something felt wrong. I stepped back from the door, remembering the security protocols my father had insisted I learn years ago. Please leave it outside. I'll retrieve it shortly. Of course, ma'am. I watched through the peephole as she set down the tray and departed. I waited 5 minutes before carefully opening the door, expecting to find a bottle of champagne or fruit basket. Instead, the tray held a single envelope with my real name, Jessica Crawford, written in familiar handwriting. James knew where I was. I slammed the door shut, engaging all the locks before opening the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single photograph, my father and Roger Caldwell, arms around each other's shoulders, both young and smiling. On the back, a handwritten note. Ask him about Mariana Caldwell. The name meant nothing to me, but the implication was clear. James was suggesting there was more to the story of his father's downfall than I knew. Before I could process this, my secure phone rang. Bishop. Jessica. Are you all right? His normally measured voice held an edge of urgency. Yes, but James knows where I am. He sent a message to my room. We're 3 minutes out. Stay inside, away from windows and doors. Your father is secure at Harrington Tower with additional security. We've contacted the FBI regarding the assassination plans you discovered. Bishop, I interrupted. Who is Mariana Caldwell? The silence that followed told me more than words could have. Bishop? Roger Caldwell's wife, he finally answered. James's mother. What happened to her? Another pause. That's a conversation for your father, Jessica. We'll be there momentarily. True to his word, Bishop arrived with 2 security specialists who swept the suite for surveillance devices before securing the perimeter. The attorney looked harried, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled. We need to move you, he announced, his tone brooking no argument. Crawford has more resources than we anticipated. The hotel's security has been compromised. How? Money opens many doors. Bishop gestured to the security team, who were already packing my minimal belongings. A helicopter is waiting on the roof. We're taking you to your father. And James? His access to Harrington Tower has been revoked. All his codes and credentials have been deactivated. He's currently being monitored by our security team. As we made our way to the roof, I clutched the photograph James had sent, troubled by the questions it raised. The helicopter journey to Harrington Tower took less than 10 minutes, the aircraft setting down on the private helipad that crowned the building. My father waited inside, surrounded by security personnel who parted as I approached. He embraced me briefly before leading me to his private office, dismissing everyone but Bishop. Jessica, he began once the doors closed. I'm sorry it's come to this. I never wanted you involved, but I am involved, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm your daughter, and I'm James's wife. I'm at the center of this, whether you wanted me there or not. I placed the photograph on his desk. My father stared at it, his expression unreadable. Who is Mariana Caldwell? I asked directly. And what does she have to do with all of this? Dad sank into his chair, suddenly looking older than his years. She was Roger's wife, James's mother. I know that much. What happened to her? His eyes met mine, filled with a sorrow I rarely saw. She killed herself 6 months after Roger's suicide. The scandal, the financial ruin, the public shame. It was too much for her. The revelation hit me hard. James hadn't just lost his father to suicide. He'd lost his mother the same way. And you knew this would happen when you turned Roger in? No. My father's response was immediate, forceful. I never imagined Roger would take his own life. And Mariana, he trailed off, collecting himself. I tried to help her afterward. I offered financial support, a fresh start for her and James. What happened? She refused, called it blood money. The last time I saw her, she told me I'd destroyed her family and that someday I'd understand what that felt like. He gestured to the photograph. That picture was taken years before the scandal, when Roger and I were building the company together. We were friends once, Jessica. Good friends. I studied the young men in the photograph. My father with dark hair and ambitious eyes. Roger Caldwell with a striking resemblance to James. So James blames you, not just for his father's death, but for his mother's as well. It appears so. Dad leaned forward, his voice urgent. But Jessica, you need to understand something. Roger Caldwell wasn't just embezzling funds. He was laundering money for some very dangerous people. When I discovered it, I gave him a chance to come clean, to return the money, to make it right. He refused. So you turned him in to protect the company? To protect everyone. My father's gaze was unflinching. The people Roger was involved with wouldn't have simply written off their losses. They would have come after him, after the company, after all of us. Bishop cleared his throat. Malcolm, the FBI agents have arrived. They want to discuss the evidence Jessica discovered. My father nodded. Send them in. The next few hours passed in a blur of federal agents, statements, and security protocols. The evidence I'd gathered from James's hidden safe and USB drive painted a damning picture, not just of his plans against my father, but of numerous financial crimes and corporate espionage. Mrs. Crawford, Special Agent Daniels addressed me as the debriefing concluded. Given the circumstances, we strongly recommend you remain here under protection until your husband is in custody. And how long will that take? I asked, exhaustion settling into my bones. We're coordinating with NYPD now. Given the nature of the threats and evidence, we expect to move within hours. As the agents departed, my father turned to Bishop. What's Crawford's current location? Bishop checked his tablet. His office. He's been there since midday, apparently in crisis meetings with his executive team. Our source says Crawford Technologies' stock has dropped 15% since markets opened. That's just the beginning, my father muttered, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Dad, I interrupted. When this is over, when James is arrested, what happens to his company? My father exchanged a glance with Bishop. With James facing federal charges, the board will likely appoint an interim CEO. The stock will plummet further, making the company vulnerable to acquisition. By Harrington International, I concluded. You'll own the very company he built to destroy you. Poetic justice, Bishop remarked dryly. But something felt wrong about the entire situation. James was many things. Calculating, vengeful, potentially dangerous, but he wasn't stupid. He wouldn't have left such incriminating evidence where I could find it. Wouldn't have made his plan so obvious. It's too neat, I said aloud. Too convenient. What do you mean? My father asked. James is meticulous. He wouldn't leave evidence of an assassination plot in a desk drawer, even a hidden one. I stood, pacing the office as I organized my thoughts. What if that's what he wanted me to find? What if this whole thing is... The building's security alarm cut me off, its shrill wail echoing through the office. Bishop's phone rang immediately. What's happening? He demanded of the caller. His face paled as he listened. Lock down the executive floor now. What is it? My father demanded. Crawford is in the building, Bishop reported. He somehow bypassed security and is on his way up. That's impossible, Dad insisted. His access was revoked. Apparently not all of it, Bishop retorted, already moving toward the door. The security team is mobilizing, but he's already past the 40th floor. My father turned to me, his expression grave. Jessica, there's a panic room connected to this office. You need to... No, I cut him off, a plan forming in my mind. I need to talk to him. Absolutely not, Bishop and my father said in unison. Listen to me, I insisted. James came here knowing he'd likely be arrested. He wants this confrontation. If federal agents or security stop him, we'll never know what his real plan is. It's too dangerous, my father argued. I'm already involved, I countered. I'm the only one he might actually talk to. Before either man could object further, I moved to my father's desk and pressed the intercom. Helen, when James Crawford arrives, please send him in. Jessica, my father hissed, but it was too late. Yes, Mrs. Crawford. Helen's voice came through, professional as always despite the circumstances. I turned to face my father and Bishop. You can watch from the panic room. I know it has surveillance of this office, but I need to speak with him alone. After a tense standoff, my father relented. 2 minutes, then security comes in, regardless of what's happening. I nodded my agreement as Bishop ushered my father toward a concealed door behind a bookcase. Be careful, Dad warned as the door closed behind them. Alone in the expansive office, I moved to the window, gazing out at the New York skyline as I waited. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the city that had been the backdrop for this elaborate game of betrayal and revenge. The door opened. Jessica. James's voice was calm, controlled, at odds with the man who had been frantically calling and texting me hours earlier. He looked immaculate in a tailored suit, not a hair out of place. If he was concerned about the federal agents likely on their way to arrest him, he didn't show it. James. I turned to face him, maintaining my position near the window. You went to a lot of trouble to get here. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. You went to a lot of trouble to avoid me. Can you blame me? After what I found in your office? He moved further into the room, hands in his pockets. A casual pose that I knew was meant to appear non-threatening. So you did go through my things. I'm curious. What exactly did you find? I studied him, trying to read his true intentions. Plans to destroy my father, to destroy Harrington International, to destroy me. And you believe what you found? He raised an eyebrow. The convenient evidence left in an obvious hiding place? Just as I suspected, he'd wanted me to find it. What game are you playing, James? The same one your father has been playing for decades. He gestured to the office around us, building empires on the bones of those who trust him. Your father was laundering money, I stated flatly. My father gave him a chance to come clean. He refused. James laughed, the sound hollow. Is that what he told you? That my father was some criminal who got what he deserved? The evidence was fabricated, he cut in, his composure cracking slightly. My father discovered something about Malcolm Harrington, something that would have destroyed him. So Malcolm created an elaborate paper trail and turned my father in before he could expose the truth. I folded my arms, maintaining my distance. And what truth is that? That your father has been embezzling from his own company for years. That the philanthropic Malcolm Harrington, paragon of corporate ethics, has offshore accounts filled with money that should have gone to shareholders. James's eyes burned with conviction. My father found the discrepancies in the accounting. He confronted Malcolm privately, gave him a chance to make it right. And for his loyalty, he was framed and destroyed. The accusation hung in the air between us. It was so outlandish, so contrary to everything I knew about my father, that I almost laughed. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to verify it yourself. James reached into his jacket pocket slowly, producing a small flash drive. Everything is here. The original accounting records my father preserved, the transactions Malcolm tried to hide, the real story behind Harrington International's meteoric rise. More convenient evidence? I challenged, making no move to take the drive. The truth, Jessica. He placed the drive on my father's desk. I never wanted to hurt you. The stairs. It was a mistake. A moment of panic when I thought you might have discovered the truth too soon. I had planned to show you everything after the merger was complete, after I had enough leverage to bring your father to justice without destroying you in the process. You married me as part of your revenge? His expression softened, perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him. I married you because I fell in love with you. The revenge against your father was separate, until I realized I couldn't have one without affecting the other. I shook my head, unwilling to be manipulated again. The FBI has the evidence I found in your office. They're probably on their way to arrest you right now. I know. James straightened his tie in a gesture that seemed absurdly normal given the circumstances. That's why I needed to see you first, to give you that. He nodded toward the flash drive. What happens next is up to you. The intercom buzzed, and Helen's voice came through. Mrs. Crawford, security and federal agents are requesting entry. James held my gaze, making no move to escape or resist. Check the drive, Jessica. If you still believe I'm the villain in this story afterward, I'll accept whatever comes. I hesitated, torn between the father I had trusted my entire life and the husband who had betrayed me from the beginning. Or had he? What if James was telling the truth? What if my father was the one who had been lying all these years? Let them in, I finally instructed Helen, never taking my eyes from James. The door opened, and security personnel flooded the room, followed by Agents Daniels and Torres. James offered no resistance as they placed him in handcuffs, reading him his rights with practiced efficiency. James Crawford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, wire fraud, and securities fraud, Agent Daniels recited. As they led him toward the door, James looked back at me one final time. The truth is on that drive, Jessica. Whether you choose to see it is up to you. Once he was gone, my father and Bishop emerged from the panic room, both looking grim but relieved. Are you all right? Dad asked, embracing me. Yes, I replied automatically, my eyes fixed on the flash drive on his desk. Following my gaze, my father frowned. What's that? James says it's evidence. Against you. I met his eyes directly. He claims you framed his father, that you're the one who's been embezzling from the company. Dad's expression hardened. Desperate lies from a desperate man. Then you won't mind if I look at it? A heavy silence fell over the room. Bishop cleared his throat awkwardly. Perhaps I should give you both some privacy. Stay, my father commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. He turned back to me, his face unreadable. Jessica, I have nothing to hide from you. If examining that drive will put your mind at ease, then by all means. I picked up the small device, turning it over in my hand. I'll need a computer that isn't connected to the company network. Bishop produced a laptop from his briefcase. This is secure. Isolated. I nodded my thanks and inserted the drive. The files were organized meticulously. Financial records spanning decades, email exchanges, bank statements, and a video file labeled Watch First. With my father and Bishop looking over my shoulder, I clicked on the video. Roger Caldwell's face filled the screen, older than in the photograph, but unmistakably James's father. The timestamp indicated the recording had been made one day before his arrest. If you're watching this, Roger began, his voice steady despite the strain evident in his face. Then Malcolm has made his move against me. I've discovered irregularities in Harrington International's financial reports. Systematic embezzlement orchestrated by Malcolm himself. When I confronted him privately, he threatened me. I'm recording this as insurance, along with copies of all relevant documents proving his crimes. If anything happens to me, the truth will still come out. The video continued for several minutes as Roger detailed specific transactions, account numbers, and the elaborate scheme he claimed my father had created. I glanced at Dad, whose face had grown increasingly pale. This is obviously fabricated, Bishop insisted when the video ended. Caldwell created this as a contingency, knowing his own crimes would eventually be discovered. Is it fabricated? I asked my father directly. Dad's eyes met mine, and for the first time in my life I saw uncertainty there. Jessica, is it true? I pressed, my voice rising. Did you frame Roger Caldwell? Have you been stealing from your own company? It's complicated, he finally said, the words landing like stones between us. Bishop looked stunned. Malcolm, you don't need to respond to these accusations. We should consult with the legal team before. No. My father silenced him with a gesture. No more lies. Not to Jessica. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 62 years. It wasn't embezzlement, not exactly. It was creative accounting, moving funds to protect the company during difficult times. Illegal accounting, I clarified, feeling sick. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him physically. Roger discovered it. He was always brilliant with numbers. He came to me privately, just as he said, but he didn't threaten to expose me. He offered to help cover it up for a price. Blackmail, Bishop murmured, comprehension dawning. Dad nodded. He wanted a larger stake in the company, more control. I refused. When he persisted, I made a choice. His eyes found mine, pleading for understanding. I created evidence of his own financial crimes. Most of it was fabricated, yes, but some was real. Roger had been cutting corners, though nothing on the scale I suggested. The room seemed to spin around me as my entire understanding of my father, the man I had idolized, the titan of industry with unimpeachable ethics, crumbled. And his suicide? His wife's? Tragic, unintended consequences, he whispered. I never wanted that, Jessica. You have to believe me. And James? I demanded. Did you know who he was when he began pursuing me? When he proposed a merger? Dad shook his head. Not at first. Crawford was a common enough name. It wasn't until after your engagement that Bishop discovered his true identity. By then, the merger discussions were advanced, and you were He trailed off. In love, I finished bitterly. So you said nothing. You let me marry the son of the man you destroyed. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting yourself, I corrected, anger finally breaking through the shock. Just as you always have. Bishop, ever the pragmatist, interrupted our family drama. This changes the legal situation considerably. If Crawford's claims have merit, and he can prove Malcolm framed his father, then James will be released, I concluded. And my father will be the one facing charges. Dad's shoulders slumped in defeat. The statute of limitations has expired on most of it, but the newer transactions, yes, there could be charges. I stared at the man before me, my father, the criminal, and thought of the man being led away in handcuffs. My husband, possibly the victim. Both had lied to me. Both had used me in their decades-long game of revenge and self-preservation. What happens now? I asked, the question directed at neither of them in particular. Bishop, ever the attorney, was the first to respond. We have options. Crawford's evidence is compelling but not conclusive. We could contest it, claim it was doctored. The case would take years to resolve in court. More lies, I said flatly. More deception. Or, Bishop continued cautiously, we could approach this differently. A private settlement with Crawford. Compensation for the wrongs done to his family. A restructuring of both companies under new leadership. It wouldn't undo the past, but it might offer a path forward that doesn't destroy everyone involved. My father looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Would he agree to that? After everything? That depends, I said, making my decision. On me. The federal detention center where they were holding James was a stark contrast to the luxury he was accustomed to. I sat in the sterile visitation room, waiting as guards brought him in. He looked tired but composed, his expression guarded until he recognized me. Jessica. He took the seat across from me, separated by a table bolted to the floor. I didn't expect to see you here. I watched the video, I said without preamble. I saw the evidence. His eyes searched mine. And? My father admitted it. Most of it, anyway. I folded my hands on the table, the diamond wedding ring he had placed on my finger catching the harsh fluorescent light. You were right about him framing your father. You were right about the creative accounting. But that doesn't make what you did right either. James had the decency to look ashamed. The stairs were just the beginning, I cut in. You married me for revenge, James. You used me to get to my father. Not entirely, he insisted. Yes, when I first approached you, it was strategic. But Jessica, what I feel for you became real. That wasn't a lie. I studied his face, searching for truth in the man who had deceived me from the beginning. You planned to destroy my father's company. You had a gun in your desk drawer. The gun was for protection, he countered. Your father has powerful connections, Jessica. Once I began moving against him, I needed to be prepared. And the assassination plans I found? James looked genuinely confused. What assassination plans? I described the detailed dossier I'd discovered on the USB drive, the one outlining my father's security detail, and what appeared to be plans for his murder. I never created that, James insisted, leaning forward intently. Jessica, I wanted justice for my parents. Yes, I wanted your father to face consequences for his actions. But murder? I would never... He stopped abruptly, realization dawning on his face. He planted it. What? Your father? Once he discovered who I really was, he needed a way to discredit me completely. What better than to make you believe I was planning to kill him? James shook his head, a bitter smile playing at his lips. The master manipulator. He played us both. The possibility hadn't occurred to me, but it aligned with what I now knew about my father's capacity for deception. If that's true, then both of you used me. Both of you lied to me. Yes, James admitted, surprising me with his candor. We did. The difference is, I'm willing to admit it. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of all the betrayals hanging between us. Bishop has proposed a settlement, I finally said. Compensation for your family. A restructuring of both companies. No criminal charges for either of you. James raised an eyebrow. And what do you want, Jessica? The question caught me off guard. Throughout this entire ordeal, no one had asked what I wanted. I had been a pawn in their game, a means to an end for both my father and my husband. I want the truth, I said finally. All of it, from both of you. And then I want to make my own decisions, without manipulation or lies. And if the truth is that despite everything, I still love you? James asked quietly. I met his gaze steadily. Then you'll respect whatever decision I make after knowing everything. He nodded slowly. I can agree to that. And the settlement? I'll arrange a meeting. You, my father, Bishop, and me. We'll lay everything on the table and find a way forward that acknowledges the harm done on both sides. James studied me with newfound respect. You've changed. Being betrayed by the two men I trusted most will do that to a person, I replied dryly. As I rose to leave, James called after me. Jessica, for what it's worth, pushing you that day. It was the biggest mistake of my life, not because it led to this, but because hurting you was never what I wanted. I paused at the door. I believe you, but it doesn't change what happened. 3 days later, we gathered in a private conference room at Bishop's law firm, neutral territory for what promised to be a difficult conversation. My father arrived first, looking diminished somehow, the confident titan of industry replaced by a man weighed down by his past. James was brought in by federal agents who removed his handcuffs before retreating to wait outside. He nodded to Bishop and me, deliberately avoiding my father's gaze. Gentlemen, Bishop began once we were all seated, we're here to discuss a potential resolution to the legal issues facing both of you. Before we begin, I want to clarify that I'm acting as a mediator today, not as Malcolm's personal attorney. Who's representing Crawford's interests? My father asked. I am, I stated firmly, earning surprised looks from everyone at the table. I've reviewed all the evidence. I know what both of you did. I know how both of you used me. So, I'm representing the only party that has any moral authority in this room. Myself. James suppressed a smile, while my father looked pained. The facts, as I understand them, I continued, are these. Malcolm Harrington engaged in financial improprieties at Harrington International. When Roger Caldwell discovered this, Malcolm framed him for embezzlement, leading to Roger's arrest and eventual suicide. 6 months later, Mariana Caldwell also took her own life, leaving their son an orphan. My father winced but didn't contradict me. Years later, that son, James Caldwell, now James Crawford, built his own company and orchestrated a plan to exact revenge. This included pursuing and marrying me to gain access to Harrington International, planning to destroy the company from within, and ultimately exposing my father's crimes. I turned to James. However, in pursuing this revenge, James committed his own crimes: corporate espionage, securities fraud, and assault when he pushed me down the stairs on our wedding day. James lowered his eyes, accepting the accusation. Both of you have evidence against the other. Both of you have committed crimes. And both of you used me as a pawn in your vendetta. I looked between them. So here's what's going to happen. I outlined the terms I had developed with Bishop's help. James would withdraw his evidence against my father, and my father would ensure the charges against James were dropped. Harrington International and Crawford Technologies would form a new joint venture, with neither James nor my father at the helm. Instead, a board of independent directors would oversee the transition and eventual merger. Additionally, a substantial trust would be established in Mariana and Roger Caldwell's names, dedicated to supporting suicide prevention programs and providing resources for children who had lost parents to suicide. And what about us? James asked when I finished. You and me? I removed my wedding ring, placing it on the table between us. Our marriage was founded on lies. It can't continue. Pain flashed across James's face, but he nodded in acceptance. I understand. As for Harrington International, I continued, turning to my father, you will step down as CEO, effective immediately. The board will be informed of your voluntary retirement. Your legacy will remain intact publicly, but you will have no further control over the company's operations. Jessica, my father protested, the company is my life's work. A life's work built on fraud and deception, I countered. This is non-negotiable, Dad. It's the only way to protect what can be salvaged. After a long moment, he nodded in defeat. And you? What will you do? It was the question I had been asking myself since discovering the truth. I'll oversee the trust in the Caldwell's name. Beyond that, I need time. Away from both of you. Away from the companies. Away from all of this. Bishop drafted the agreements on the spot, his legal team working to formalize what we had discussed. By evening, both James and my father had signed the necessary documents. The charges against James would be dropped the following day, and my father would announce his retirement by the end of the week. As we prepared to leave, James approached me privately. I meant what I said, Jessica. Despite how it began, what I feel for you is real. I believe you, I said quietly, but it doesn't change anything. We can't build a future on a foundation of lies. What if someday we could start over, without the lies, without the revenge? There was vulnerability in his question, a side of James Crawford I had rarely seen. I don't know, I admitted honestly. Right now, I need to figure out who I am outside of being Malcolm Harrington's daughter or James Crawford's wife. I need to find my own truth. He accepted this with a nod, respecting my boundaries for perhaps the first time. Whatever you decide, whatever path you choose, I hope you find happiness, Jessica. My father waited until James had departed before approaching me, his expression somber. I never meant for any of this to touch you. But it did, I replied. Every decision you made, from framing Roger Caldwell to hiding James's identity when he came into our lives, it all led to this moment. Actions have consequences, Dad. Sometimes they take decades to manifest, but they always come due. I know that now. He looked older than I had ever seen him, the weight of his secrets finally visible. Can you ever forgive me? I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't something I can give you today. Maybe someday, but not now. What I can offer is the chance to do better, to use what's left of your life to make amends, not just to me or to James, but to all those affected by your actions. He nodded, accepting my terms with the grace of a man who knew he deserved far worse. I love you, Jessica. That at least was never a lie. I know, Dad. I love you too. But love without truth isn't enough. 2 weeks later, I stood on the balcony of a rented villa in the south of France, watching the Mediterranean glitter under the setting sun. The media frenzy surrounding my father's retirement and the sudden merger announcement had been intense. But here, thousands of miles from New York, I had found a measure of peace. My phone chimed with a message, Bishop, confirming that the Caldwell Memorial Trust had been officially established. The work would begin soon, but for now, I allowed myself this time to heal, to reflect, to decide who Jessica Harrington, no longer Crawford, would become. The irony wasn't lost on me, that on what should have been the happiest day of my life, a push down a grand staircase had set in motion the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. My billionaire husband had indeed pushed me, and my CEO father had indeed ruined his empire. But in the process, they had revealed truths about themselves, about business, about power, and about me that might otherwise have remained buried. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I realized that sometimes it takes a fall to show us who we truly are, and more importantly, who we have the potential to become. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time since that fateful day on the stairs, I was making my own choices, writing my own story, and that, perhaps, was the greatest revenge of all.